on coaching staffs right now.
Sam Kahn wrote a great story today in theathletic.com. It's not the first time. The transfer portal is open, a day of roster construction at the University of Houston. He joins us now on 365 Sports. How much access did you expect and how much did you get with this one, Sam?
I was obviously hoping for as much as I could get, as you are with anything like this. And honestly, it was pretty good. You know, I had actually come up with the idea a few days before the portal opened because, you know, we've had the portal around for a little while, but this new transfer window idea is the first time for everybody where it's not open year round and you have to have an exception to get in early before December 5th if you're an FBS player. So I said, you know, what's that going to be like for these? Because they're used to guys trickling in for multiple days, multiple weeks, even multiple months over the course of the end of the season and postseason. So I had just thought, you know, hey, Houston's a team that's going to the Big 12. They're trying to build a roster specific way. And I've got some relationships over there with some of the folks on staff there. I said, hey, would you guys mind if I came and hung out and just saw, you know, what that first day was like where all these kids are coming to the portal? And they said, yeah. So I was just able to hang around basically in the offices all day from about 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. To get a real close look at how everything went. And, yeah, I had pretty good access to it, and it was very welcome. It was very eye-opening because there is a lot that goes into it that even beyond what I had considered, which I don't think I realized how much film these guys have to watch when these guys jump in the portal, how many guys are looking and sorting through in a given day. I mean, we're talking about trying to sort through, I think 780 guys went in the portal between FBS, Division I, Division II that first day. I think they probably sorted through about 300 or 400 of them that first day, at least in terms of checking, hey, who's this guy? Where's he from? What's his production? Let's take a quick look at him.
Is how much of that also is, oh, hey, this guy that we recruited before is in that, so we can put him in the this will be easier to figure out stack?
No doubt. No, there was no doubt. Like when Kyron Drones got in, and of course, you know, we knew that one was coming because he had announced a few days before on Twitter that he was going to enter. But when Kyron Drones' name pops in, of course, that's the guy that they recruited out of high school. You know, Hudson Card, who came out of Austin Lake Travis, when he get in the portal, again, they knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when he actually gets in. That's the guy they knew that was coming. And so that doesn't take very long because, you know, you've already got college tape on him. You already know you already had high school tape that you evaluated extensively. You probably offered him. And so you know what those guys can do. So that doesn't take very long. That's very simple as, hey, this guy jumps in, get the coach on the phone. Hey, let's call him. If we want him, let's offer him right away. Other guys that they haven't recruited and that they don't have relationships with, those are the ones that they're spending a little bit more time studying.
Sam, is there somebody there going like, hey, we've only got this much room? I mean, where's kind of like the checks and balances as far as roster availability and, you know, the 85 men and all that kind of, I mean, is there somebody just kind of reminding them along the way of, oh, we've already offered a couple quarterbacks, we kind of need to stay pat? Like, how does that work?
You know, honestly, a lot of planning on the front end. Like Houston had specific needs. They need quarterbacks because they're losing Clayton Tune and they're losing one of their backups. They need defensive backs. And then just like everybody in the portal, if there's a good offensive or defensive lineman in there, they're going to take a look at him because you can never have too many good offensive, defensive linemen. But right now with the situation with no limits on initial counters where you can take as many guys as you want, I don't get the sense that there's a hard cap on – I mean, there is a hard cap because you got to stay under the 85, but they're not necessarily – I think it's not necessarily on the 85. It's more of, hey, we need this many guys at this position, and we need this many guys at this position. Dana Holgerson was very upfront. He said, we probably are going to take 2 quarterbacks. So I think it's less about the 85 and more about, hey, here's who we know where we're losing, here's where we're thin, and here's how many of these guys we need. And these are the areas we're going to focus on. If at Houston, they probably need some defensive backs. They probably feel pretty good about where they are at linebacker. So that's really, I think, where the numbers game comes in for them.
And am I wrong to think that in your story you mentioned recruiting assistant intern Martin Mariquin, I think is his name? Are guys like Martin, the GAs, others who are a part of like even scouting film, whatever, are they the MVPs of the transfer portal?
Oh, no doubt, because he's the one sorting through. Martin is the guy, and he's an intern. A lot of these guys on this staff are full-time guys, like Harding Harper, who's their defensive assistant director of player personnel, TJ Randall, their offensive assistant director of player personnel, Casey Smithson, who leads the department. All those guys are full-time guys. I think they've got 5 full-time recruiting staffers at Houston, which is about pretty close or comparable to a Power 5 level. There's you find some Power 5s, maybe even 7, 8, even 9 people on their staff, but there's a lot of full-time people, but there's also a lot of helpers. There's guys like Martin, who's an intern. There's also other people helping with on-campus stuff, but they really are, because Martin's a guy who's like looking at this list, and he's the first one that's like looking, okay, this guy's in. All right, does he have any production? Does he have any tape that we can look at? Okay, does he fit what we're looking for in terms of, does he have 2-3 years eligibility? Okay, he's one. So then he's looking and he's passing it on to the next guy, to one of those other assistant director player personnel, to get further valuation. So there's no doubt, because there's so many names that filter in the portal, and it can honestly make your mind boggle, especially on that first day, because they're just flowing in hundreds within an hour. And so it's hard to sort through all that. So guys like him are invaluable in a situation to keep you organized and on task.
Sam, for a team like Houston in particular, how important is it, and it's hard to do in year one, but they are jumping up a level in conferences, to improve the depth at the bottom of the roster, also through the transfer portal?
Yeah, no doubt. I think that is probably the biggest challenge, is doing it, getting depth guys, so to speak. And I think where you're going to find teams doing that is getting guys from a different level. So if you're a Power 5, maybe you're getting a lower end group of 5 or FCS guy to come up. If you're a group of 5, maybe you're combing through FCS or even Division II to get a guy for depth. But I think ultimately what we're going to find with a lot of programs, the programs that don't recruit at a top 5 or top 10 national level in high schools, I think you're going to find a lot of programs are going to rely on high schools for depth. I think you're going to see that you're going to try to recruit the best high school players you can and develop them, but then that's probably going to be the top half of your class. But then the bottom half of your class is going to be those depth guys that you're going to hope to develop and keep on your roster to some degree. And then you're going to supplement those gaps that you find where either it's a recruiting miss or you have a lot of attrition in one position, and you're going to fill that out with the portal. And so I think you're going to find it's going to be an interesting mix depending on where you go. I think junior colleges is going to be an area for that too, because that's an area right now that's getting very overlooked because of how much focus is on the portal, and you can get guys with legitimate FBS tape and legitimate FBS reps. You don't see as many JUCO guys going Power 5, and I think there's some real value there to be had for schools like Houston, or even maybe schools like UTSA or North Texas that are in the group of 5 level that maybe they can find some value in a spot like JUCOs that can give you either depth or maybe even some rotational type guys.
Sam, what's just the general feeling you get around the Houston offices? Obviously not the ideal year that they would have loved to have had, finishing 7-5 in the regular season, some bumps and bruises along the way. Just what's kind of the vibe check, if you will, on Holgorsen and the Cougars at the moment?
Yeah, certainly disappointed, because I think a lot of people pegged them as a double-digit win team, possibly a New Year's Six team coming in to the year, and to not meet that expectation was certainly difficult. Like you said, they did have a lot of injuries. They lost their best defensive player early in the season, Derek Parrish, and they've lost their starting running back, Holton McCaskill, way back in spring, and didn't have him all year. So they definitely had that, but they're going up to the Big 12, and I think that's the one thing is you're going to find Dana Holgorsen, I think, trying to manage expectations a little bit, because they struggled a little bit in this last year in the American, and now that schedule is going to get beefed up. You're going to have a Big 12 schedule that you're playing next year, and that's why they're trying to get this roster right, because I don't think they want to be in a situation where they're going 4-8 in the first year in the Big 12. But if you don't get the roster right, you could be looking at something like that. That's why it's so important for them to find a quarterback to replace Clayton too. That's why it's important for them to get some of these other guys back healthy and get some more depth on the line of scrimmage. So definitely frustration for Houston at this point, but I think they feel like long-term their plan is still solid to succeed long-term in the Big 12.
I read in the article, there's a guy that's got a monitor. He's got like 4 or 3 or 5 of them. Is it almost like a stockbroker or somebody in Vegas making bets on games at the bar?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I think someone mentioned that. It is almost like a stock ticker, because you're just seeing guys flow in, and you refresh that portal, and there's a handful more names that pop in. And handful more names pop in, and then you've got video on one screen, you've got a spreadsheet on another, you got the portal on another, and so it does take a lot of focus and a lot of organization. And like I said, it can kind of blow your mind a little bit if you're staring at it too long. And on that day in particular, I don't think any of those guys went to lunch until about 3:00. Because there was just so much happening throughout that morning. So it can get a little dizzying at times for sure.
Is the website easy to navigate?
The portal?
Yeah.
The portal is, it's very simple. It's like very bare bones. Honestly, you don't really get that much information out of it. It is name, team, school that he went to, and conference that he played in, and then they have some other stuff, like they have like an NCAA ID number, and I think they have like what division they played in, Division I, FCS, Division II, whatever. But that's it. And so that's part of the thing. We were mentioning the intern earlier. He has to go look up what classification he's in, how much he's played, how many years of eligibility he has, and all that stuff. None of that stuff is in the portal. The portal is pretty much just names, schools, conferences, and division. That's it.
We had today Campbell Barrington, who's he committed to Baylor last night. Obviously, had known Eric Mateos and Jeff Grimes, and is there much discussion from the coaches? And I know you were talking about more the clock ticking, about those conversations when a player informs a coach they're leaving or getting into the transfer portal?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a race. Like, or if they post it on social media, obviously but this is such, and I've talked to a lot of player personnel directors around the state and around the country about this. The first 7 days are so critical. And honestly, in the first day, it is critical. And I think it was probably more so minutes mattered probably even more in the past than they did this time around, because in the past, again, it was a slow or steady trickle of guys. With them all coming in at one time on Monday, I think it did create a little bit of a chance for some schools to take a little bit more time, as opposed to, hey, we don't have to get them in these next 5 minutes. Maybe we can get them later this afternoon, just because everybody's dealing with the same challenge. However, there are certain guys, and one of the staff mentioned this to me. There are certain guys that it's going to be very competitive for, and that maybe they have an idea of where they want to go. But if you don't offer them within the first few minutes, by the time you get to them, if 20 minutes have passed, they may have 5, 6, 7 offers already from other personnel guys, depending on the caliber of that player. And so the minutes can be critical for some guys, but I think there are some instances where you can kind of finesse it a little bit. But in most cases, I would say these transfers, especially the FBS transfers, the Power 5 transfers, you're going to find most of these guys making their decisions within the first week of them getting the portal. It's definitely a race to who can get not just in contact with them first, but who can get them on campus to visit first. Because if you can get them on campus for an official visit, you got a really good shot to get that player.
Couldn't they just wait and just put Texas A&M in the search and wait for all of their transfers to get in the portal and call those guys?
You certainly, I'm kind of wondering when this will stop. We got the 22nd scholarship player jump in there today, Smoak Bowie. So it is going to be interesting. And that's the other thing that's fascinating about this is we're going to have this period until January, and then at January 18th, the portal's going to shut down unless you're a grad transfer, unless your coach leaves, and you have 30 days after that, unless you fulfill one of those exceptions. And then it'll reopen again in May for 15 days right after spring ball. And so this all again on May 1st, we're going to have a bunch of guys, when they check the depth charts of their schools, hey, am I going to play? Am I not going to play? All right, I'm going to jump in the portal and see what's out there. And so we're going to go through all this again in a few months after spring ball ends. And that's, I think, the fascinating part of it. And that's, again, part of the challenge for a personnel staff is, okay, how many guys do we get now in December? And what do we end up having to anticipate that we're going to lose in May? And what can we get in May when the portal opens back then?
It's nuts. It's nuts. Sam, thanks for your time. Do you have a favorite Mike Leach story before we let you go?
Yeah, my favorite Mike Leach story was I talked to him a few years ago, retrospective on the Texas upset in 2008. And he was talking about the three-way tie that they finished, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, and Texas. They all finished top Big 12 South for a three-way tie. And he said, they were having trouble deciding who should go. because they had all beaten each other and they all had pretty similar resumes. Of course, we know Oklahoma went on to the Big 12 championship game by virtue of their BCS standings. But Mike Leach's idea was, why don't we decide on graduation rate? He said, everybody likes to talk about student athletes. He goes, but we don't want to bring it up when it matters most. He goes, why don't we set it on graduation rate? And of course, Mike knew at that time that Texas Tech had a better graduation rate for his players than the other two schools did. But that was truly a Mike Leach thing. It was a very unique, very out of the box thought. And like I said, I love talking to that guy. I talked to him a lot over the years. Got to meet him. Got to know him. Know a lot of guys that he came up under him. Obviously, we mentioned Dana Holgerson earlier. Sonny Dykes, a lot of others. Truly a trailblazer in the sport, and certainly shaped the way that I view the sport. And man, we're certainly going to miss Mike. I promise you that. And
one of those guys, Eric Morris. You've also got a story out on him as North Texas's new head coach.
That's right. Yeah, Dana Holgerson pointed that out yesterday. How cool was that? That on the day we lost Mike, that one of his proteges got a head coaching job, and that was a great hire, I think, by North Texas. Eric Morris already did a really good job at Incarnate Word. He's a great offensive football coach, and I'm excited.
Sam, I'm not sure if the same AD hired Eric Morris at Incarnate Word that hired G.J. Kinney, but there may be a story there that here they have Morris, who's already now at North Texas, and G.J.'s about to go to Texas State, so they're doing something right down there.
I was thinking about that earlier today, too, and it's not just that. I wonder if there's something going on in San Antonio, because look at what Incarnate Word has done under those two head coaches, and look at what UTSA is doing under Jeff Traylor. And I've talked to a lot of coaches around the state who have said in the last couple of years that they thought the San Antonio region is a little under-recruited in this state. Obviously everybody focuses on Dallas-Fort Worth, Houston, and East Texas. I wonder if those programs being able to mine that area for talent, if that has really turned that into a growing hotbed for college football, because you see the success those programs are having right now. Obviously, UIW in the FCS semifinals and UTSA with 2 double-digit win seasons and Conference USA championships. I think there might be a little something cooking down there in old San Antonio.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Sam. Great article. TheAthletic.com. Again, the transfer portal is open. A day of roster construction at Houston. Early